Hello and welcome to a virtual tour of Rocamadour in the Lot department, southwestern France. Rosalind Blundell, Angela Fagan and I, Enrica Mallard, formed Sacred Spirit Tours to facilitate others to awaken to their own divinity while experiencing the sacredness available to us all in so many places across the globe. Our intention is to take you to these sites in person, yet our current environment does not allow this possibility. In the meantime, we invite you to experience virtual tours of places we hope to one day share with you. Today we are visiting Rocamadour, which means Rock of Love. It is one of my favourite places to be. So profound was my instantaneous connection with her. The Black Madonna we will be visiting at Rocamadour is Notre Dame de Rocamadour, also called Notre Dame de Pauvre, Our Lady of the Poor. She is also known as the Queen of Heaven. We hope you enjoy this journey to Rocamadour as we share our experiences, some history, meditation and reflection, and most outstanding of all, the sacredness of this old, holy place, the destination of pilgrims for millennia. Let us begin with a story. This sacred site creates deep connections in the psyche. Allow yourself to be open to your own experiences as we begin our journey together with Rosalind as she shares her first experience journeying to the beloved Rocamadour.
Thank you, Enrica. I want to tell you about how Our Lady and I met for the first visit years ago. It was in the dead of winter, not snowing yet. My guidebook said the sanctuary was open all year round, so our rendezvous together was set. Her sanctuary is perched on top of a rather sizable steep mountain, and I took off with no raincoat, no water, and the wrong shoes. The book said to park at the top and catch the lift down to the sanctuary, which I thought was a brilliant idea. So I headed to the top and to the lift. I drove up there, but couldn't get through. It wasn't open. I knew that there was another way up the mountain that was from the bottom, so I drove down to the village to catch the lift. Yet facing the lift entrance was a sign, which I quickly translated from my worn-out dictionary. The lift does not work in winter. Well, where there's a will, there's a way, as the saying goes. I was determined to see her. Looking around at the village, no shops open, no food, no water, and no body, but I did find the steps and I decided to climb. I began to walk up and up and up, and I felt like I was pulling myself along using branches and tufts of bush, anything to gain some ground. There was a time when I did question my sanity, muttering to myself, I must have madness of sorts. Why would anybody do this to oneself when one has free will? Yet truly, I knew the answer. I was choosing to see her. Halfway up, I met a man wearing green pantaloons, and with a sweeping gesture of "At your service, madame," he joined me on my journey, and together we climbed to the top. I was tired and parched, and my little companion threw himself in front of me and says, "There's no water," and promptly took off and raced up the stairs to the Notre Dame chapel. My joy at arriving at our destination was sidetracked by my mind-churning thoughts about why the guidebook did not inform the reader about the difficulty and challenges facing a traveller in winter. Suddenly, Mr. Green Pantaloons man looked at me with an attitude of disgust, and in his colourful ancient language said to me, "Imagine climbing up here 1,000 years ago, in the mud and the snow, trying not to fall off the side of the cliff. Madame, at least they had a smile on their face. What do you think being on pilgrimage is. Effortless. A light bulb moment. With this awakening, he stormed off and vanished. I realised that I had grumbled all the way up the hill, forgetting the prize awaiting me, a prize worth the difficult journey. I realised that my little friend had also navigated me through the labyrinth of structures on the mountain, and before me now was Notre Dame de Rocamadour. She remained sitting peacefully in her chapel, as if she had been waiting for me to arrive, and because of winter, I had her all to myself.
In preparation for your venture into the chapel to be with Notre Dame de Rocamadour, we invite you to receive an anointing with frankincense. Our intention is to honour you, acknowledge you, and remind you of the divinity of you. Our Lady of Rocamadour's message to all is from the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Poor in spirit refers to humility, the bearing of all before Divine Mother in the form of Notre Dame de Rocamadour. Begin to reflect on why you are here. Allow your thoughts and awareness to rise up within you, ready for when you do enter the chapel. For now, let us go back in time. Way back to prehistoric times, when the sacredness of this site was already known. Let us go back to what led to this place and her presence being so powerful and potent, and as many say, magical and miraculous.
The history of this area is incredibly old. In it are Paleolithic grottos and cave art going back 30,000 BCE. These caves could be called the first churches, heralding the cathedrals we see today. The ancients sensed some sort of enhanced spirit which controlled their life and their death. The search to find a symbol of this spirit, a deity of sorts, and a house for it to be in shows up everywhere in our prehistoric past. The first caves of worship were often set back from the entrances by a half a kilometre. They were dark, cold, and made of limestone, which would have been consistently wet and slippery. So when we look at the maze of paths they made in their search to find what, we don't really know, but we do know they were inaccessible and remote, and part of the shaping of our spiritual world we know today. These caves at Rocamadour seem to be for this purpose, and it's no wonder these caves have become so revered. During our recent trip, we had the privilege of venturing into one of these many prehistoric caves on this mountain, and it's called the Grotte Préhistorique de Mabel, the Prehistoric Grotto of Wonders. And it's a rather new cave, it's only 20,000 years old. About 30,000 years ago, the Homo sapiens and the modern man began to migrate as the ice melted, and they started to settle instead of wandering to find food source. The main settlement of concentration was in Europe. So as we stood in this cave, we knew that we were standing where the ancients once stood. Not much has changed. Here we were amongst the cold, wet stones and the stalagmites and the stalagmites and the columns continually forming over thousands of years of trickling water. Closing our eyes in this subterranean presence and the silence, we could hear an orchestra of sounds, from water in the distance flowing naturally through the stones into inner pools, to bats and birds echoing in the hollows, and our own breathing. And I'm sure if we'd stayed there longer, we may have heard the voices from our past. I know I was touched standing here, underground, sensing our long ago ancestors who carved out our future, although they would never know it. But they did leave us a message through their art, or maybe even more important than just the art, it was a message to remember them. Standing in this 3-metre high space and looking at a wall which at first looks like other limestone walls, but eventually your focus adjusts and you see their hands, 6 of them, along with horses and deer and a mystery animal. I don't know how to explain this feeling. You connect somehow and you feel life under your feet. A longing in me wants to know how they felt. Did they believe in anything? It was certainly magic and magical for them when they discovered that when throwing black dirt, which we now know as manganese oxide, and red dirt, which we know as iron hydroxide, over their hands, they began to paint their environment. It was dark, no moonlight filtering anywhere, and with only the flickering of firelight, our future ancestors left us a message, a narrative of their time. Moving closer to our modern time now and the story of Saint Amador and Rocamadour, historical records will tell us that in 1066 Common Era, an incorrupt body was discovered, buried in a tomb, in a cave, next to the current chapel. At first it was unknown who he might be, but the news spread about an incorrupt who was found in an ancient cave of the goddess Cybele, and the hermit had replaced Cybele with what was now the walnut wooden Black Virgin statue, and he had placed her on the ancient Celtic Druid stone in the cave. And so the body of a hermit with no name became Saint Amador, which means love, and a different type of pilgrimage began. Before we go deeper into our story of Saint Amador, let us reflect further that people have been praying here for a long time, in one form or another, way before the 9th century Christians. The Celts, the Romans, and the ancient Greeks revered the goddess Cybele, among other deities. It seems the grottos and caves on this mountain and others were sites for that purpose. Cybele was an old goddess dating from Asia Minor, where she was known as the Magna Mater, the Great Mother. We know from Greek and Roman historians that she was the mistress of nature, a healer, a protector, and she improved fertility, not just in people, but for grain as well. One attribute that the Romans wrote about her was her orgasmic rites of passage. It was written that her male followers would work themselves up into a frenzy and self-mutilate their manhood in devotion to her. Well, there has been a lot written about this rather bizarre ritual, and Cybele in art is almost always represented as old and large and stern-looking. There is a suggestion that mistletoe and certain mushrooms may have featured in these rituals, and this would explain a lot. And I don't think we could have any male volunteers to test the theory. Now let us get back to the story of Saint Amador. His tomb is to the right as we head out of the chapel. The Black Madonna's original grotto is believed to have been carved by Saint Amador, or possibly he adapted an existing altar used by the ancients. In 1166 Common Era, he was found in his tomb next to the Madonna site, which he dedicated to Mary. In honour of his devotion to Mary, Rocamadour got its name, the Rock of Love. Some say he is the character Zacchaeus, the tax collector from Jericho and the husband of Saint Veronica. And the Apostle Luke mentions him in his writings. According to Interfaith Mary, he could have been a servant of Mother Mary, or perhaps a nanny of Jesus, or he meets the Holy Family whilst they were escaping out of Jerusalem to Egypt. There is also another story that he hid the Holy Family in a grain field, and then he asked that the grain should grow big enough to hide them. And this was known as a miraculous act, but truly we'll never know. But it is told that he received a request from Mother Mary asking him to live a hermit's life in France. And honouring her request, it is said he took with him the black statue of her carved by St. Luke. I have a piece from the Gospels of Luke which I've paraphrased, a snippet, which might explain perhaps the real story. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, and because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to the sinner." So what does this mean? Well, in biblical times, tax collectors were considered sinful and were rejected for supporting the Romans instead of their own people. We don't know what happened in the house. Most likely he was baptized and he became a Christian. And we don't know really which Mary he was devoted to, either Mother Mary, Magdalene, Mary Jacobi, Mary Salome, Martha, who was also called Mary, and there was another Mary mentioned, but she is unknown to us. And they were all followers of Jesus. So it is easier to understand why, let's say, Mother Mary sent him off to become a hermit, as a punishment, or maybe as an opportunity to atone his behaviour. Or maybe he had already surrendered in the devotion to her and had become awakened. So perhaps the stories just might be true. What we do know is that the saintly hermit devoted the remainder of his life to Mary at this spot in Rocamadour. The early 13th century basilica was built around a small chapel or grotto that was carved out of the rock right on the cliff, and the date is unknown. It is impossible to say what the grotto looked like, as the grotto and the vault collapsed in 1476 Common Era, and it was rebuilt from the image of the neighbouring caves. The only part of the chapel that is ancient is in the grotto where today our Madonna sits. It is just a small piece of rock, awfully hard to see. Others refer to the rock and say, "She has been there since the dawn of time." Some say she's not the most attractive Black Virgin, but she's all-powerful and she compels us to sit with her and talk. What we do know about Our Lady's appearance is that she was once covered with silver plate. You can see the last of it on her today. We know that she is 66 centimetres in height, from the 9th century, and is made from blackened polychromed walnut wood, and is said to be carved by St. Luke. But this is not likely, as he was from 700 years before her carbon dating. But things have been known to be wrong, so maybe she could be that old. She certainly looks it. But people question, why is she that colour? And of course the usual answers: she must have been buried for a while and the soil made her that way, or the silver decayed and turned her black, and perhaps humidity was responsible. But for me, she was always to be this way. That is why I would have to say she is my very favourite, because she hasn't been tinkered with.
Our Lady of Rocamadour is renowned for her miracles. People from all over Europe come to her. Accounts of her miracles abound. Even as early as 1172, a book of her miracles was written. A legendary feature in the chapel is a bell dating from the 9th century. It is amongst many other objects in the chapel, yet This bell is also said to be miraculous. The bell is fabled to ring when a miracle occurs at sea and a sailor's life is saved. Hence, another name for her is Star of the Sea. As you look around the chapel, you can see models of boats from which a miracle was said to have been gifted by her. It is like Notre Dame de Rocamadour has made a clear commitment to help the world. While the white limestone buildings cling 150 meters high in the cliffs and are perched over the river Alzou, it is a key stage on the journey to the pilgrimage of St. James Compostela. Famous people who have been known to have journeyed here include Eleanor of Aquitaine, nicknamed the Mighty Lion. Her father, William X, died on the road to Compostela in 1137 when she was 13 years old. We do not have the dates that she visited, but it is documented that she was here with Notre Dame de Rocamadour. Also, King Henry II of England came in 1159 and again in 1170. Louis IX and his family travelled here in 1244. And Charles IV of France came in 1323, and Louis XI in 1443, and again in 1463. Through the ages, all who came to her would be equally blessed in her presence. While we do not have accounts of the numbers, it is most certainly too many to count. Maybe you will be added to the list of famous pilgrims to this site in the foreseeable future.
So now let us sit with her a while. If you are not there yet, go straight to the Basilica of Saint-Sauveur and to the Notre Dame Chapel, where the Black Virgin is waiting to meet you. She welcomes all who come to her. She gives her love freely and unconditionally. All who come before her experience their own communion with this blessedness. Such is the essence and feeling of her presence. Later, I will share my first encounter with her, an encounter which changed my life. In that moment, I felt I was held in a love so divine that all yearning dissipated. Now it is you who sit before her. Choose to remove all distractions as you realize that you are alone with her and she is here for you. There is no need to do anything. If you have a prayer, offer it to her and then surrender everything. Let go completely within this divine, unconditional bliss. Sit in the space, in the void in which your merged presence is. Know that she sees you and the truth of who you are more than you could ever see for yourself. Her love for you runs so deep, it is unfathomable. Receive her deep love. Allow her deep love to heal you. Know that the connection you make today will be with you forever. Call on her any time. Sit with her whenever you need, knowing that she comes to you. As you be with this unique experience of her, allow me to share my first encounter with this divine feminine. It came in 2019 when Rosalind, Angela, my son Patrick and I were travelling together in France. Arriving late in the afternoon into Rocamadour, Rosalind and I chose to venture towards the chapel in preparation for the morning. There were no obstacles as expected, and we soon found ourselves in the chapel, kneeling before Notre Dame de Rocamadour. Being late in the day, Rosalind and I were alone with Divine Mother. I cannot describe the warmth and love of the embrace I felt. After sitting a while in the silence and stillness, I felt a calling by Mother to write a message from her. I felt both a sense of surrealness and urgency to get the words on paper, as she had begun to tell me her message. I pulled out a notepad I had in my bag and I wrote down her words. I felt I was listening to Mother Mary, and this is her message to us all. Tell the world about the beauty of love and loving each other. We are all the sons of God, no matter the origin. We are all the daughters of Mother, no matter the origin. We are born to awaken the soul beyond the body and know that all is as God, known to God, and beloved by God. No one is alone. All are loved beyond measure. Be in the love of divinity beyond the measure of the world. Pray to me, and I will bring your prayer to life. I have vowed to be there for all who ask me. Know this. I am overjoyed to be with you here. Love all as I love you. You are all my children, and relish the embrace of you in my arms. Come to me. All is well. Do not leave my embrace. In the days that followed, while remaining in a sense of bliss, I continued receiving messages from Divine Mother. On the 22nd of June, I heard her words. You are to create a Black Madonna in Australia. While I had no idea how or where to begin, I felt an unwavering resolve, and I never questioned undertaking her request. I continued to receive details of how the Black Madonna was to be presented, and I was given her name, Notre Dame du Monde, the Black Madonna of the world. I felt a deep sense of awakening. I felt a divine response from the prayers of so many across the globe. I knew I was being guided to contribute to the re-emergence of the divine feminine in the world. I knew that what I was being asked to create was an invitation to each person who comes before her to commune in oneness. Her request of me did not change after returning home, and by April 2020, Notre Dame du Monde was completed, funded by the three of us, all arising from when I sat with her that afternoon, my first visit to be with her, yet I felt like we had known each other for millennia, and maybe we have. Really, I know she is the same divinity which we all are. No one is separate. In those moments with her, she facilitated my experiencing of that oneness, the truth of who we are. Notre Dame du Monde currently resides in my home, awaiting her longer-term home, a place where all can come and be with divinity, like Notre Dame de Rocamadour so lovingly showed me. I continue to feel her embrace. I continue to feel her love. I feel her when I sit and be with Notre Dame du Monde. There is no separation. I will continue to be vigilant to guidance and awareness of what Mother may ask of me as Notre Dame du Monde emerges publicly in the foreseeable future. Come back to your experience of her now. It is almost time to leave this chapel. Sit in your reflections. Is there a message for you? A reassurance? Undoubtedly a divine embrace. She will be with you forever. When you are ready, begin to make your way out of the chapel. Until next time.
Before you take some time to explore the remainder of Rocamadour, there are two interesting features just outside the chapel, often passed unnoticed, which you may like to see. The first is the Sword of Roland. From where you stand, having stepped out of the chapel, look up to your right and you will see what is said to be the Sword of Roland. It is truly a mystery as to why it's there. However, if we were to speak of the myth of the sword, we could also say it is perhaps the true story of the sword in the stone. Remember all those stories about the illustrious heroes who possessed a magical sword? Take King Arthur and his infamous sword Excalibur. Duranal is the original name for the sword, and it is said to have once belonged to Hector of Troy. And as told in French epic literature, it is also said to have belonged to Roland, the fabled paladin, which is one of the 12 fictional knights of the Charlemagne in 748 Common Era. Legend has it that the hilt of the Durinal contains the tooth of St. Peter, the blood of St. Basil, a hair of St. Denis, and a piece of veil or robe from the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it is said to be the sharpest sword in existence, full of magical properties. A tale says that Roland was able to hold back 100,000 Muslims from attacking Charlemagne's troops by just using the Durinal. Other mysterious feats also took place. In the end, stories say that as Roland lay dying in 788 Common Era, not wanting the enemy, who were the Basque, which is the people who lived between the lands of France and Spain, to get the sword, Roland flung the Durinal in the air, where it miraculously landed in the crack in the rock in Rocamadour, and it's been here for centuries. So is it based on fact? A question. And remember the 12 Knights of the Round Table in the King Arthur story? Was it really a retelling of these 12 knights and Roland, whose sword may very well be the one we are looking at now? But I must say, there is no archaeological evidence on the subject yet, so I remain open to the word perhaps. Now, turning to your right again, on the exterior wall or forecourt of the chapel, notice this unusual painting. At first glance, it looks a little sinister. It is of skeletons. You may question, as many have, what is the depiction of skeletons doing here? The description tells us that one of the skeletons is Saint Christopher and the other a mysterious child, Jesus some say. This is in line with the famous legend that tells that Saint Christopher carried a child who was unknown to him across a river, and before the child revealed himself as Christ. Saint Christopher is the patron saint of pilgrims and travellers, and we know that this is a major stop on the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. Also, we must not forget many sailors and mariners turn to Rocamadour for blessings for their safety and a safe return home. Saint Christopher holds this space outside, while Notre Dame Rocamadour beckons you inside.
For now, continue to stay in the bliss of Notre Dame de Rocamadour as you venture into the village below. The village has been the source of refreshment and rest for pilgrims for centuries, and today it is you. As we leave the mountain, we will stay a while to witness the symphony of lights that begins at dusk as the current custodians of Rocamadour illuminate the night, creating a magical and breathtaking sight of the unforgettable Rocamadour. So like so many in history who have returned again and again to this sacred and miraculous site, listen out as, at any time, you might be called by Our Lady to visit her again, but maybe not in winter.